Well, it's been another ropey-dope night in Wall Street, folks, with its markets well down again as the tariff war between America and China shows absolutely no sign of letting up. So letting us explaining it all is Ross Greenwood.
Hang on to your hats, hang on to your undies.
That's the best way to do it.
Exactly.
Just close your eyes and
just
let it go.
In there, right? I think it's going to go because every day is a wild ride. Let's take you through the markets and just show you what's happened overnight. So these are the US markets, and look, we're getting used to these really wild swings, but you know, to see swings of 5% either way on any given day just goes to show how really fragile this situation is with the tariffs, with Donald Trump, and really, as we'll explain, it's all about the escalation of the war between America and China in terms of trade. So there's the broader market as the S&P down 3.5%. Here's our market today, set to be down 1.5%. Look, in relative terms, it's not a massive swing, 1.5%. It's pretty solid, but these things keep on going. Dollar's sort of hanging in there now, back to where it was before all this started, around 62 1/3 US cents. So from that point of view, you can kind of see it is pretty volatile. It just keeps on going though, and really it's not going to settle until something happens one way or the other with these tariffs. Somebody's got to blink. It's either China or the United States. But right now, it genuinely is a game of chicken to see which of those nations.
Well, I wonder what, and I was talking to Richard Quest last hour about this, you know, what the circuit breaker is here. China's now got 145% tariffs. You know, 125 plus the 20, so it's not giving any way.
So you just go back and have a little look at this. So we'll show you some of this as we go through. So just the tariffs, you know, Chinese goods to the US 145%, US goods to China 84%. So they're both going back and forwards, just doing this. They're ramping it up. And so from this point of view, here's the Chinese markets. Now, just to explain a little thing here, while the rest of the world either collapsed or then came good, Chinese markets have been relatively stable. Now, you might be a cynic here properly, and the reason is you would say that the Chinese would manipulate their stocks. Right? So the Chinese government, not to lose face, basically doesn't want these wild swings in its stock markets. And so as a result, yesterday you could see here, Shanghai up by 1.3%, the Hang Seng in Hong Kong up by 2%, the rest of the world markets were up by 4.5%, 5%. So, you know, it's more modest in the movements up and down, but that largely is as a result of it. But the big issue here is that somebody's got to blink. And while the rest of the world has got this 90-day hiatus on these tariffs, which are now just at 10% for the rest of the world, China is ramping up the tariffs on the US. The US is doing the same on China. So at some stage, the two leaders have got to talk in sense and just figure out where the tariffs go, because it's doing nothing to help either country, the volatility. And certainly Australia almost becomes, you know, a bit of the piggy in the middle in some ways.
Well, just on that, I mean, I feel like we're at this poker table and there's Donald Trump and there's Xi Jinping, and they both feel like they've got good hands, so they're just putting more chips in. So do we have to take a side?
Well, we kind of, you know what happens if we take a side.
I know the business leaders didn't want us to. But
no, that's right. If we take America's side, we already know what happens there.
That's right.
Because you can remember the tariffs on steel, on wine, on barley, on all those things here in Australia.